Here we go. My next guest on the show, he needs no introduction, but deserves one anyway. He is the true voice of Mad Dog Radio, hanging out in God's country now with the shit kickers in Wyoming. He is the one and only Dino Costa. Dino, how's it going today, man?
What an introduction. My goodness. Did you stay up last night thinking about how you were going to introduce me?
Dino, when I get a guy as great as you, you need a tremendously, awesome introduction. I thought about it all night, and I hope I did you well.
You did fine. It's good to be with you today, and looking forward to our conversation, our little chat here.
Absolutely. Now, Dino, I got to start out right away, man. I know you don't take shit from anybody, and recently I see a bunch of tweets from your listeners, and it seems like something's going on with your show that's inappropriate. You do a tremendous job. You're dominant. You're like no other sports talk radio host out there, and it seems like someone's getting in your way. Like the Suits are trying to take over Dino Radio. What the hell is that about?
Well, that's a great question, and you're right. The show in the last couple of editions of it has changed a little bit. The fabric of it. I'll just say that there are some people that fail to recognize the unique characteristics of the show and its ability to strike a chord consistently with its listenership. And what this gets down to, I think, is, and I think it's only fair to mention that Siriux has, ever since I've been there, they have given me tremendous latitude to do my show the way I want to do it. And sometimes you get people who will not listen very often. I'm talking about the Suits, as you mentioned, at Sirius XM. And when they drop in on occasion, they'll hear a certain segment of the show, and they'll think that it is truly representative of the entire show, when in fact, obviously it's not. So there's been some talk in the recent past about making the show a little bit more sports oriented, and I think that that has been the case. That's what you've been referring to, and but I think that it's going to come back full circle again, and I think that in short order the show is going to return to its roots, and we're just going to continue to do what we've been doing for going on close to 4 years now.
Absolutely, and you do it like nobody else. But Dino, does this go back to the state of talk radio in general, like sports talk radio? Like these guys want you to be specifically sports, when there are really other things out there that other listeners can account to and find relatable to your quality and your content. So is this like a statement of sports talk radio now?
Well, I think sports radio I find it to be a limited vehicle in terms of really cultivating a wide demographic base of listeners. And I think that if you, one of the things that I resist is sports radio that is done in sports radio-ish ways, because it is pretty much done the same everywhere. It's predictable pitter-patter. And it is only surface-oriented stuff with the same sorts of takes, if you will, commentary. Everybody follows everybody else, and everybody's got the same opinion for the most part. And then you go to the calls, and maybe you yuck it up with your partner on the air about this, that, and the other thing. And I can't do that kind of radio. That kind of radio. If I had to do that kind of radio on a consistent basis, it would make my skin crawl. So, I want to project. Look, I do sports radio, and there's no question that sports is the base of my show. But I want to present it in a much different way than is the normal status quo. And I think that the uniqueness of my show and the way that it's projected really is something that is becoming more and more popular with people who sample the show. And if it would be easy for me just to do the kind of sports radio show that most, every Tom, Dick, and Harry does. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in presenting it in a way that is a radical departure from the status quo. And I've had great success with that, and I think I'm going to continue to have success with that. So we'll just let the chips fall where they may.
Oh, absolutely. Dino, you had tremendous success. Now, does this why possibly, now there was some rumors out there that you had turned down a gig at 790. Is that kind of why you didn't take that gig? Because you didn't want to go generic style? You kind of wanted to be Dino Costa and stay in that realm of what you do?
Well, I got to admit, the 790 position in Miami was very attractive, and I was flattered that they reached out to me when they did and wanted to talk to me. And I spoke with them at length, and we talked about several different concepts for a show that would have been a morning drive show. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to develop Todd Castleberry is the program director there. And when Todd, earlier in his career, he had worked as an affiliate with a station in Washington, D.C., carried the Imus in the morning show out of New York when Imus was at WFAN. Todd has always had a vision to create a show like that, and I was very intrigued with that because I wouldn't mind maybe trying to do something like that, and it would have included a couple of different people in the studio, and a news person and a traffic person and a girl to play off of, and the producer would have been involved. And so, I thought very hard about that. And but after I talked with them, I decided that I didn't think that the fit was right, and I sent a message, and I took myself out of consideration for the position. I think that I would have been able to do a good job, but I think that you're right. It would have been limiting to a certain degree, and perhaps I was sensing that, and that's probably what led me to withdraw my name from consideration. And but I don't know what they're doing right now down there, but I hope they get a morning show that eventually does succeed. But you're right. I would have had to change up my game a little bit, maybe a lot. And perhaps after doing the kind of show I've been doing for going on 4 years at Sirius XM, I wasn't quite comfortable with the notion of giving up a lot of that freedom that I currently possess.
No, and that, Dino, that's what makes you great, man. It's your freedom to say what you want. You put balls to the wall. You don't care what anyone else thinks. And just as much as you get the positive feedback, I think the negative feedback that you get is kind of flattering in a sense that those guys who don't like you will listen to you more than guys who like you.
Well, I hope you're right. Yeah, I think so. I think there are a lot of people who obviously dig the show and see the world and the sports world through the same vision that I do. And I think there's a lot of people who resist and would go against a lot of what I believe in and don't see the sports world through the same way that I do. But I think you're right. I think that any successful talk show host, particularly one who has as strong of an opinion on so many different things as I do, and is driving a show through commentary and opinion as I do, if you're successful doing that, you will have people on both sides of the aisle, people who love what you're saying and listen, people who can't stand what you're saying and still listen. One of the, I get people calling me with regularity. I mean, if you listen to my shows, I mean, it's like clockwork. And people will come on and say, Dino, I just want to tell you how much I enjoy your show, love what you do. Hey, Dino, first-time caller, been listening for so long. I keep Sirius XM because of you, and so on and so forth. Those are very flattering, obviously, and any talk show host can appreciate those kinds of calls, Joel. But what is more impressive to me is when people will call me and they do and tell me, Dino, I completely disagree with probably 9 out of 10 things that you say. Or, Dino, your political slant in regard to X, Y, and Z is something that I don't find favor with. But I think you've got a tremendous radio show, and I listen every single night. Those kinds of calls are even more impressive than the people who call up and tell me that they love the show.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to love the guys that kiss your ass, but you got to love the guys who really, because I think the guys who don't like you when you're doing this business kind of appreciate where you're coming from more because you, frankly, have the balls to say what other people don't say.
Well, and again, you have to have, you're right, and you have to have the people behind you in order to do the kind of a show that I do. If I didn't have the support of the people at Sirius XM to go out there and do the kind of show that I do and to unfold it every night in the ways that I do, saying the things I say, giving the opinions that I give and then backing them up with at least arguable commentary, then I wouldn't be able to do this kind of show. But if I'm allowed to say the things that I do, and if people, like that, they've also got to give thought to the fact that unless I had, people at Sirius XM who allowed me to do that, I wouldn't be able to do it. So you have to have the forum, yes, but you've got to have the people behind you who say, hey, go out there and do your thing. And for the most part, Sirius XM has allowed me to do that.
Oh, and like I said, it's great to have you on that network. Now, we know you're a big Colorado guy, Denver Broncos, and a Tebow guy. So I had a conversation with you on Twitter about Tony Sparano leading the Jets offense and how kind of Tebow fits more into that mold than I think Mark Sanchez does. But moving forward, do you see Tebow as a guy who can lead this Jet team kind of like he led the Broncos last year?
Well, I think before the end of the season, he's going to be the Jets starting quarterback because you can just read the tea leaves and you can see it. He's not a very good practice player. In fact, he might be the worst practice player in the NFL. But when the bullets start flying for real and during the games, he seems to rise to the occasion. Can he find the same success that he had last year with the Broncos? I'm not so sure about that. Maybe not. I think he's going to get better as a quarterback with more time, and it's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to be rooting for him to do well this season, and I think that, again, I think he's going to be the Jets starting quarterback before the end of the year, and I think that he was probably the last place, as I've said this many times, the last place he needed to go was to the Jets for a wide variety of reasons, chief among them. I think it continues to retard the development of Mark Sanchez, who, as I've said many times on my show, a guy who has been in the league now 4 years, but is not allowed. He's not been allowed to progress at the kind of a pace that a young quarterback coming into the league should have the benefit of being able to do. So we'll see what happens. But no matter where Tebow is, I'm going to root for him because I find him to be a real good young man and a guy who has got his priorities in order. So I can obviously have a lot of positive things to say about Tebow.
And you make a good point about Mark Sanchez. You see, when he first came into the league, those first 2 years, the Jets were more of a ground and pound, defensive-oriented team. And then all of a sudden, without any question asked, they kind of tried to make him into a passing quarterback like Tom Brady in that division. And I think that's how come he's regressing, because I don't think he knows how to be a passing quarterback in this league.
Well, I don't think he knows what his identity is. I think that's reflective, in fact, of the entire team, because the coaching staff has sent so many different messages to the team. And let's just stay on Sanchez. They sent him so many different messages. We just want you to manage the game. Or now we want you to open it up. No, now we want to go back to ground and pound, as Rex Ryan likes to say a lot. Now we need you to be more of a playmaker. Hey, put the plays on your wristband. Now we're going to go with color-coded stuff. I mean, it's amazing to me that he has been able to keep his head above water despite the fact that I believe he is, and I've said this many times, I think he has been the worst coached quarterback ever since he came into the league of any other quarterback in the league. And again, I talk about retarding his progress. I mean, the last thing they needed to do was to bring in Tebow, because again, it's just another thing now that Sanchez has to deal with. And it's a struggle for him. I really think that Sanchez can be a much better quarterback than he has shown, but I don't think that's going to be able to happen in New York. I said last year at the time that Tebow was brought to the Jets and made the trade that if I were Sanchez, I would have instructed my agent to seek a trade to go to the Jets and say, get me out of town, because I'm convinced that if Sanchez was in Cincinnati, if Sanchez was allowed to come into the NFL in Houston or Miami or virtually any other market except Rex Ryan's Jets, that he would have been able to, hit the NFL and grow at a reasonable rate without the incredibly high expectations that have been placed upon him by a coach who, as you know, first couple of years it was, we're going to the Super Bowl, we're going to the Super Bowl, we're going to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's tough, especially in the biggest media market in the country, to be able to grow as a quarterback under that kind of an environment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the big market in New York, and you look at the next guy next door is Eli Manning, a guy who has 2 Super Bowls in 5 years on a giant team that flies under the radar every year. And when you're trying to account to that, it's kind of hard. It's tough to win those Super Bowls, especially, comparing to Eli Manning.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point you make, because Manning came in and didn't start right away. And you remember they had Kurt Warner there, and he was able to learn. He was able to, he didn't have Super Bowl shoved down his throat by the coaching staff. And, he was able to watch, observe, learn, practice, progress, mature, watch film. And even when he started playing, he didn't, set the world on fire when he took over. And you could see the progression and the growth and the maturity that Eli has maintained on a year-by-year basis. Sanchez has not had that benefit, and I think that Jets fans view him in a very unfavorable light, and I think it's very unfair because, again, you have to look at what kind of an environment he has been trying to become an NFL quarterback under. Comparatively speaking, if you look at the other team in town, you've got a quarterback there who was allowed to progress the way a young quarterback should be allowed to progress.
Absolutely. Now you're talking about young quarterbacks, young teams, and you look at my team down here in the South Florida area, the Miami Dolphins. Now with the polarizing thing going on with Chad Johnson, what's your take on that? Did the Dolphins handle that properly? I mean, and granted, Ben Roethlisberger had an accusation of rape. He got a 4-game suspension, a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he didn't get cut from his team. A guy like Chad Johnson, who I personally thought was changing his attitude, going to be a good veteran presence with these young wide receivers. Did the Dolphins handle this right? Did they kind of act too quickly on this whole Chad Johnson situation?
I thought they did, and I've been watching Hard Knocks, and I've been very impressed with Joe Philbin. I've been impressed with the entire coaching staff that they've assembled down there. And, it's not like Joe Philbin didn't try to work with Chad Johnson. He did. He told him, listen, I want to do things in a professional and dignified way here and, allow for you to be who you are. But at the same time, you've got to understand that we're trying to build something here. It's the first year of a brand new football administration. And I just want you to do things in a little bit of a lower key tone, not to lose yourself completely in terms of who you are, but understand that we do things. I want to do it in a professional way. And you saw in Hard Knocks, Philbin talked with him and tried to get him in line. And I just think that when you're Joe Philbin and you're this first year football administration, you're thinking short term and you're thinking long term, and you're thinking about setting a tone within your organization about what is going to be permissible and what is not going to be permissible. And the Dolphins have been swimming around in mediocrity for years. They've gone through one coaching staff after another, and I know where Joe Philbin is coming from here. I mean, it's time to win football games, number one, and number two, it's time to really set the tone as a professional organization and let guys know that although you can be yourself, you're not going to embarrass this organization to the point where Chad Johnson obviously did. I think if Chad Johnson was in his prime, was 3-4 years in the NFL, and had not had the long history of saying outlandish things and being all the ways that Chad Johnson and Chad Ochocinco have been, I think he would have probably stood a much better chance of coming back. But given, his perception that Philbin has of him, I think that Philbin says, I want to limit the distractions here, and let's concentrate on what's going on the football field rather than worrying about these hijinks off the football field. So I do. I think the Dolphins made the right choice there.
Oh, we'll see what happens moving forward. I think they're, you said mediocrity. I think they're more of a team of futility. You look at the preseason, the first game, the lack of fans out there. When Seattle, a team out there in the Northwest, had 65,000 for a preseason, the Dolphins couldn't even draw 15,000. So, moving forward with the young quarterback, what are your intake of Ryan Tannehill so far in that little limited first preseason that you saw?
I like him a lot. I think he's got a chance to be their quarterback for the next 10 years. He's got a firm – what I like about him is his maturity, and I love the fact that he's – like we talked about Mark Sanchez being not allowed to grow on a year-by-year basis. I think that he's in a perfect situation in so many different ways. It's a team that is really starting over from scratch, rebuilding. He's got a new coaching staff that believes in him. He's got an offensive coordinator in Mike Sherman that played for in college. He's got great size. He can throw the football very well, got a strong arm. He's cerebral. He understands the game. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL 3-4 years from now.
Well, I hope so. I hope he's a building block for the Dolphins. Now, lastly, I want to hit something that's poignant and coming home to me as a huge baseball fan that I am. This whole Steven Straussberg thing, an innings limit when you're a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 79 years since the Washington Senators. Is it a travesty what Mike Rizzo and the Nationals are trying to do to Steven Straussberg, or are they really looking toward the future of the organization?
Well, that's what they'll say. They're worried about his future and next year and 2014 and 15 and so on and so forth. I just think I can't square it. I can't reconcile it because, how do you say to Strasburg, it's been a wonderful season. They've got the best record in baseball. They're closing in on a playoff spot. We get to the postseason and now you can't take part in, the party. I don't know how, if you're Strasburg, how do you stand for that? There's no guarantee that Strasburg or the Nationals are ever going to be in this position again. So to me, it's fundamentally flawed. While I can understand where the Nationals and their GM Mike Rizzo are coming from, on the other hand, you want to give yourself every opportunity when you have the opportunity to win. And I'll see it when I maintain. I'll believe it when I see it. If they're not going to let Strasburg pitch, and there's been some rumblings in the Nationals clubhouse during this last week, some guys that don't agree with what they're doing here. I don't see how you can not allow Strasburg to take part in a chase for a championship once you get to that point in time. It just seems completely unfair to me.
Oh, absolutely. And I said this on my show the other day, if they're really set in their ways about doing this, my compromise would be this, and let me know what you think, Dino, that shut him down now, allow him to save some of these innings for the postseason. At least let the guy who's been a great pitcher in the National League this year, second only to my man R.A. Dickey, honestly, that, give him the shot in the playoffs. Let him prove his worth when it really matters.
Well, whether you shut him down now or you limit his innings to the end of the season, I think we both agree that you got to allow this kid to get into the postseason and pitch. Again, nothing is guaranteed. May not be in this position ever again. So I think we find common ground on this.
I think it's going to be really interesting. By the way, Dino, my man Kevin Canessa wants to tell you, he says, hello, glad that you're doing well on Sirius XM. And it's been a true pleasure and an honor, honestly, to have you on with me today, man. I really appreciate your time, Dino.
Well, you tell Kevin I said hello. He's a real good guy, and I really like him a lot. And the honor and the pleasure has been mine. And I thank you for your invitation to come onto your show and call me anytime. Be more than happy to continue to talk to you at any time.
Yo, Dino, once again, thank you so much. Have a great show tonight, and I'll talk to you soon, my man.